Commander ZH Kral's mandibles clicked in what the humans had learned to interpret as condescending amusement. The Valkyrie military officer stood at the observation platform of the Terra Nova proving grounds, surrounded by 17 cadets from 6 different species of the Galactic Concordat. They had arrived on Earth as part of the mandatory cross-species military exchange program, designed to foster cooperation among the Alliance members. Kinetic weapons, ZH Kral transmitted through his vocoder, the universal translator rendering his chittering into flat, mechanical English. How primitive. The other cadets joined in the derision. A Quellan cadet, her photoreactive skin rippling with colors that signaled mockery, gestured toward the artillery pieces being positioned in the valley below. Our ancestors abandoned such crude technology 3,000 cycles ago, she said. Directed energy weapons are infinitely more efficient. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen stood beside them, her expression neutral despite the mounting irritation she felt. She had commanded the 3rd Artillery Brigade for 7 years and had heard variations of this speech from every alien delegation that visited Earth. The Concordat species viewed humanity as the galactic equivalent of hillbillies who had stumbled into a quantum physics conference. Energy density, continued a VRYX cadet, his crystalline body refracting the morning sunlight into rainbow patterns across the observation deck. Chemical propellants are wasteful. Plasma cannons deliver more joules per kilogram with none of the logistical burden. Chen allowed herself a thin smile. Perhaps you'd like to observe our demonstration before rendering final judgment? ZH Kral's translator emitted what might have been a laugh. Of course, Commander. We mean no offense. It is simply fascinating to observe how primitive species adapt to modern warfare despite technological limitations. The cadets settled into their seats, some still exchanging what they presumed to be private communications through their quantum encrypted channels. They didn't know that human signals intelligence had cracked their encryption protocols 6 months ago. Chen could read every dismissive comment, every joke about humanity's backward military doctrine. She raised her hand, and in the valley below, the demonstration began. The M777A3 howitzers opened fire first. The 155mm round screamed downrange, each shell following ballistic trajectories calculated by quantum computers integrated into the fire control systems. The cadets barely stirred. They had seen similar weapons in museums. Then the M109A8 Paladins joined the symphony. The self-propelled artillery pieces fired in rapid succession, their autoloaders cycling through rounds at a pace that made the previous generation of weapons look arthritic. Still, the alien observers remained unimpressed. Subsonic projectiles, noted the Quellan cadet. Our point defense systems would intercept 98% of the HIMARS launchers fired. The high-mobility artillery rocket systems sent their payloads arcing into the sky, and for the first time, Chen saw uncertainty ripple through the alien cadets. The rockets accelerated beyond Mach 5, their precision guidance systems already calculating atmospheric conditions, Coriolis effect, and target movement with microsecond accuracy. Impressive velocity, ZH Kral admitted. But still. The railguns spoke. The experimental XM1299 extended range cannon artillery pieces, upgraded with electromagnetic acceleration rails, unleashed projectiles at velocities that made conventional artillery look stationary. The tungsten penetrators, each weighing 20 kilograms, exited the barrels at Mach 7. The sonic booms arrived 3 seconds after the visual flash, a thunder that shook the observation platform and rattled the alien cadets in their seats. Chen watched their expressions change. The mockery evaporated. Those projectiles. The VRYX cadet's crystalline voice carried a tremor. They're approaching orbital insertion velocity. Correct, Chen said calmly. And they're still accelerating. In the valley, the true demonstration began. The M1299 is fired in sequence, each shot synchronized with orbital satellites that painted targets with quantum-entangled markers. The shells, no longer simple chunks of metal but sophisticated munitions containing their own guidance systems, penetrator packages, and submunition dispensers, follow trajectories that defied conventional ballistic physics. The first round struck their targets, hardened bunkers built to Concordat military specifications. The structures, rated to withstand direct hits from plasma cannons and particle beams, simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to several tons of antimatter, but delivered through simple mass and velocity. The second volley demonstrated the cluster munitions. Each shell separated into 47 submunitions at apogee, creating a shotgun pattern that covered 3 square kilometers. The smart bomblets sought out their own targets, using millimeter-wave radar and thermal imaging to distinguish between military and civilian signatures with accuracy that exceeded 99.7%. The third volley showcased the penetrators. The depleted uranium darts, accelerated to velocities that caused atmospheric plasma sheets to form around them, punched through 50 meters of reinforced concrete and buried themselves in the bedrock below before detonating their seismic charges. ZH Krell stood frozen, his mandibles locked in a position that the translator interpreted as profound shock. Those weapons, they're not primitive. They're terrifying? Chen offered. Yes. That's the point. The Quellan cadet's skin had lost all color, cycling through panic patterns. The energy density, the kinetic yield, how is this possible with chemical propellants? It's not, Chen explained. The initial charge is conventional, but the railgun acceleration adds the real velocity. And unlike your energy weapons, our ammunition doesn't dissipate over distance. Every joule we put into these projectiles stays with them until impact. No atmospheric diffusion. No energy bleed. Just pure kinetic transfer. She pulled up a holographic display showing comparative analysis. Your plasma cannons? Maximum effective range, 40 kilometers before the plasma bolt loses cohesion. Our railgun artillery? We've hit targets at 400 kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. And we can maintain fire rates that your energy weapons can't match because we don't need to wait for capacitor recharge cycles. The VRYX cadet's voice emerged as a whisper. The logistical advantages: you can stockpile ammunition without power requirements. No energy signatures to track. No thermal blooms during firing that reveal position. Now you're beginning to understand, Shen said. Your species developed energy weapons because they seemed more sophisticated. More civilized. But sometimes, the oldest solutions are the best ones, especially when you apply modern technology to ancient principles. She gestured to the valley where the artillery pieces were being reloaded by automated systems, the entire process taking less than 8 seconds per gun. We call it evolutionary warfare. You made your weapons more complex. We made our weapons more efficient. ZH Krell finally found his voice. In our wargames, our simulations assumed human artillery was negligible threat. Easily countered. We prioritized defenses against energy weapons because that's what our doctrine emphasized. Yes, Chen said quietly. We know. We've read your tactical assessments. It's why we invited you here. The observation deck fell silent except for the distant thunder of another volley. The alien cadets watched as the artillery demonstration continued, each salvo more devastating than the last. They saw crater chains that stretched for kilometers. They watched as bunker complexes that could withstand nuclear strikes were reduced to vapor. They observed as the artillery pieces, mounted on high-mobility platforms, fired and relocated before counter-battery fire could even be calculated. The Quellan cadet spoke, her voice subdued. If your species can do this with projectile weapons, what have you done with your energy weapons? Your missiles? Your orbital platforms? Chen's smile held no warmth. Perhaps that's a demonstration for another day. As the alien cadets filed out of the observation platform, their earlier arrogance replaced by thoughtful silence, ZH Krell approached Chun. His mandibles moved in what the translator rendered as respect. We have misjudged humanity, he transmitted. We saw primitive weapons and assumed primitive thinking. We failed to recognize that sometimes, the most advanced solution is to perfect the fundamentals. Chen nodded. In the Concordat, you've had peace for so long that warfare became theoretical. An academic exercise. But humanity? We've been fighting each other for millennia. We know that in war, sophistication means nothing if it doesn't kill the enemy more efficiently than they kill you. She watched the last artillery piece fire, its shell already climbing toward the stratosphere, carrying enough kinetic energy to level a city block. You laughed at our firepower, Commander ZH Krell. I hope you've learned an important lesson today. Which is: never underestimate the species that turned warfare into science while you were still learning to make peace. The shell impacted 30 seconds later, and the thunder rolled across the proving grounds like a promise and a warning, echoing into the alien observer's nightmares for years to come.